All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Lacey. Good evening, John Fry. Good to see you guys. Glad to see you guys made it and to see you guys are here. Um, I hope you guys can hear me now. As far as I can tell, it looks like my sound is coming through, but let's see. If I turn this on, you might hear me echo for a moment. All right. I'm hearing me. So if I'm hearing me, I'm hoping that you're also hearing me. Good to see you guys. I know it's not everyone's new year. However, it is a new year for a lot of people. At least it's an opportunity for a lot of people to begin new in their training and way of thinking. And so what you see behind me is something that has intrigued me my entire life. I grew up in the country, and so it's like we took for granted the opportunities to sit back and just stare at the night sky and look and just wonder what this is. I remember laying on the trampoline with my cousins and looking up at the stars, and we would actually try to count all of them. Good luck doing that. I'm sure someone has done it already, or and at least I know we've got technology that says we've done it or whatever. And but either way, I've always wondered what this thing is. I mean, did we really go to it? Did we fly there and land on it? It's really interesting whenever you come across not one or two or three, but dozens of videos of astronauts, like, and especially like Buzz Aldrin, acknowledging and admitting that they never even went there. They made it. They just made a movie recently with it. I think that Scarlett Johansson plays in it. She's pretending, it's the whole theater scene about them going to the moon and whatnot. The country was a good place to grow up. I can't say that I regret doing it. Of course, there was always those evenings and those nights and days when I thought about what it would have been like to have city life, next door neighbors where I'm roller skating up and down the sidewalks and whatnot, like I used to see in movies. But I didn't really experience that growing up. But I had other experiences that other people couldn't fathom. I imagine they just couldn't imagine it. But it's interesting when we think about things that we all are taught about, and we're all told what this is before we have a chance to really even wonder what it is. It's really amazing. And so I'm going to pull something up here. Let me see if I can get this thing pulled up. It's going to work. It's going to work. You see this moon behind me. Let's see. Oh, I got to open this. All right. It should be pulling up now. Let me put that on 4K capture. Boom. All right. There we go. Now you guys can see what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to talk about. Let's see. What do you got going on here, Mr. John? In the summertime, me and my brother sleep in our treehouse. Part of it didn't have a roof, and I always sleep there so I could watch the stars. Man, oh yeah, man, I loved our treehouse. Well, my neighbors, my cousins next door, actually, they had a big, huge treehouse. It was like a little bitty house built up in a tree with like a whole ladder thing going down. I mean, it was or stair thing. It was pretty extravagant for a treehouse to say the least. But I used to love climbing trees with like these big thick ropes, like those ropes that you use to moor off boats and stuff. Those ropes, and we'd tie them up in trees, make knots in them, and make ladders and climb use them to climb trees and stuff. That's one thing I like doing as a kid when living out in the country is something that's just something you don't get to do a whole lot of in certain places, especially like in the cities where you have Karens and Steves next door, calling 911 every time they see you doing something they don't like. All right. So let me get back on track here. What we got here is this right here. You had to climb tree to get yours. Yeah. So this right here is the moon. Obviously, if you look outside at nighttime, you'll see this thing. It's pretty amazing. And if you notice that with this moon here, I want to show you something. So our calendar, oh man, I don't know if I have that pulled up. I'll get that set up in while y'all are looking at this moon. Let's see, I got to pull this history tab up. I forgot all about that. 1780 Codex. I was going to show you guys a codex. All right. And the 13-month calendar. See if I find it. Yeah, that'll work. I'm trying to pull this picture up for you guys. Why is it trying to do weird stuff? Oh, there it is. Okay. So this moon is very significant to us, but in different ways than what we've been taught. You're taught, we all are taught that this moon circles around the earth, pulling the waters with its magnetic pull as it revolves around the earth. And the thing about this moon is that they tell us that these craters that you see in it are actually from asteroids. All of this is just like bombardments. It's where asteroids and rocks throughout this space and galaxy. Only reason I'm mentioning all that and telling you all that is to point out that I'm a plumber. I'm just a dumb old dude from Mississippi, and I know and understand enough about this moon, the same as everybody else. No one really knows any more about it than anyone else. Everybody can look up this same information. It's not rocket science, so to speak. But that's all I'm trying to point out, is that this is all stuff you already know. However, what I'm about to show you and tell you is that what you're looking at is not what they're telling you you're looking at. These are not craters from asteroids. These are fountains of the deep. They're like little volcanoes underwater, basically. But when they explode, water comes out of them. And this moon that you're looking at shows you a reflection of the world. This is the same image. That cartoon Earth that I drew, that someone had to point out that it was a fake image or whatever, is the same image. The moon and this image, they're the same. This is the same two things. You're looking at the same bodies of land. It's like that right there. This is what you're looking at. In the last stream that I did, where I think all my audio was okay, I had drawn a fake Earth, a little cartoon Earth. Let me pull that back up. And I showed how our world is this right here. These 7 continents within this circle right here. This circle on the outside, I told you that was the ice wall. What I'm about to show you here is what I'm talking about with that. So, as you can see in the center of this, make that a little bit bigger. Now, this person, I don't know who he is that made this map. I don't know what country he's from, but maybe these words don't spell the same way you would spell them. They mean the same thing. They're the same places. This is Russia, but this here he's showing you that this is 4 little land masses right here. And they call this Hyperborea. So when you're into the conspiracy channels and whatnot, talking about the North and the hidden lands of whatever, and you hear the words Hyperborea, this is all they're talking about, is these 4 little land masses right there. Now, what's interesting about this is there used to be, well, there still is, it's a mountain right here. Now, if you go and look on, let's see, let me pull this back up. If you go on Google Earth, which, by the way, this thing's fascinating. Oh man, there it goes. Notice how these straight lines. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing how they stitched all this together. When you go up here to the north, let's see how close we can get. North Pole. Well, there's nothing there. You have Greenland right here, and I saw a post on YouTube by Leaving Babylon about Greenland. I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're on the same page with all that, but we'll see if there's anything to that. I know that they're pushing for a lot of stuff in the political realm, but I've been trying my best to stay away from that within this channel. So that being said, notice how there's nothing up here. It's just water. I mean, that's it. That's all you have. Just a body of water. And then you have all this empty ocean right here. Ooh, zooming too far out. You have all this ocean. This is the world they tell you live in. Oh, there's Antarctica, this little bitty island or whatever thing they done put together down there. Right off the tip of South America. There it is. I don't know how they even fit all this on here. Got Africa way over here. Africa and South America about the same size on this little ball thing they got going on. This is all on your Google Earth. This is the little world they say you live on, right? They say you live on this. You've been taught you were living on this. In fact, they were telling you that you were living on this before you learned how to read and write. You were being taught all about this world right here. All before you learned how to read and write. Before you even had a chance to read the Bible for yourself, even, you were told what this is. And this is where you live. When in reality, where you live is all of these land masses that you just seen in Google Earth here. They all fit inside this circle right here. All of our 7 continents fit within this ring. And what's going on with these barriers and firmaments and the reason why sometimes they're able to fake things is because our world doesn't work the way we think it does. If you'll notice on here, there's this little bitty sun looking thing. Man, let me get rid of that. Right there is this sun looking thing. With this, let's just call that the sun. And what it does is it moves east to west this way around us. If you'll notice, when we rotate this, this is South America. This is North America. Here you have Russia, Alaska, Greenland. But on this map, they have 4 little continents or islands up here in the north. Now, I'm positive almost that that's still there. But you're not allowed to go there, not on your own anyways. No vessel's going to take you there. There's no point in it. They don't think there's anything there. Regardless, you're not allowed to go there. You're not going there. It's just not going to happen. If you do see somebody go there, they ended up going to one of these little islands out here. It's all they did. Or they went to somewhere in Greenland, perhaps. But they don't actually ever go here. We're not allowed to go there. But there's a tree that used to be in the middle of this, and now it's a large mountain. And this mountain acts like a magnet. And what it does is it creates like this magnetic Coriolis effect. As it does this, what it's doing is it's creating the currents and the seas and stuff. And if you know anything about positive and negative electron pulls and pushing and all of that when it comes to electricity and how magnets and electricity and electrical current flows and all that works, all I'm showing you with this picture right here is that you realistically could go into your kitchen or go into your shed or whatever, grab a couple things, go into your kitchen, and you can perform these experiments in your kitchen. I mean, you could do this stuff at home to prove all of this that I'm telling you about how these currents and all this stuff works with these magnets. Now, but what they don't tell you, though, is that what this magnetic force is doing on a flat plane. Let me just pull up a blank sheet here. On our world that we live in, if you were looking at it from the side, you're standing here. Let's just put a little U down here. That's you down there. You think you live in this, when in reality you live in this. The problem is that this part here and this part here are not the same. I went too far. This right here is physical. That's physical. That's the firmament. That's what you are reading about in the Bible in Genesis. When we go to Genesis and it talks about the firmament, this is what it's talking about. This dome, this big dome right here. What's over you and me, though, what's over us right here within our little world is this. Another dome. But this dome is not the same as this. This is more of like, it is a dome. It's like icy. It's kind of icy-ish, but it's like a jello-y, I don't know how to explain it, but it is like kind of like water, basically. But it's basically a force field, if you want to call it that. But it's a magnetic bubble that's sitting on top of us. Man, I can't go all the way back. But it's like a magnetic bubble. And what it does is out here on the outside edges of it, it creates an a cold area, and it creates this icy barrier. And that's what really forms the ice wall. And so this ice wall right here that goes around our world is due to something that do with the magnetic function of this mountain right here. And for whatever reason, it's got our sun and our moon revolving around our world in this small little quarter right here. When you break this up into 4 quarters, what you have is now the Hebrew map, the Hebrew map of the world. You know, that's absolutely right. You know, not only can you light a low light bulb with salt water, you can light a low light bulb with just dirt, you know, just the ground itself, John. That's pretty amazing, actually. See, that's knowledge that they don't want you to have. You know, they don't teach that in school. You have to figure that out on your own, basically. But what I was saying about this here is that the Hebrew maps that you see that show 4 land masses with 4 rivers that run through it, this is what they're seeing. originally, but this is before the flood, though. Those maps of the world are pre-flood maps. Whether they were drawn after the flood or before the flood is not relevant. What they're referencing is the world before the flood. And before the flood, you had these 4 giant land masses on our world here, and each one was a quarter of the world, represented a quarter of the world. And you had these 4 rivers, and in the middle, a giant tree. And that giant tree had branches that would go all the way out to here, sort of. You know, I mean, I could be exaggerating that a bit. I don't know exactly. That tree's been cut down a long time, or been gone a long time from us. Point is, there are 12 of these massive trees like this one that's in the middle of our little area. Let me get rid of some of all that junk I got going on. So not only did you have a big tree in the middle, you had 12 of these trees that go around here like this. But then you had probably, I don't know, thousands of smaller little, versions of those big trees, but they would be scattered throughout. And there was just so much land. The seas were the bodies of water that went around this thing, or went around those 4 quarters. That was your seas. And then you had the rivers. These oceans didn't exist before the flood. Before the flood, these were not here. You didn't have all that because you just had 4 rivers. That's all you had. That's all that was necessary, I guess. You had 4 rivers. And what ends up happening is when these fountains burst out from the deep, boom, like that, right here. Let's erase all that. Let's get rid of all that. What ends up happening is it pops up like this, and all of this dirt and land that came has to fall back down to the earth somewhere. Now, a lot of it gets washed away in this water right here. Now, for those who've never built anything, understand that when you build something out of concrete, for example, or bricks even, it's not the same as dirt or soil or just land in general. It's not the same. This is dense. This is not. I mean, this is kind of dense. I mean, you build houses on it, right? So dirt is kind of dense, but at the same time, it's not dense. It's not dense like concrete. And the reason I'm pointing that out is that if you sat here with a high pressure water and you sprayed a spot into the ground, eventually you would have a hole. Not all of the mud is going to go out here, but some of it is going to go out here. It's going to kind of do this number. But a lot of that mud is just going to compact down here. It's going to create like a harder layer, a thicker layer of dirt down here is all this is going to do. But ultimately, you'll end up with a hole right here. I did not want to do that for sure. Ultimately, now let me go back. You'll have this little hole, and that's from water spraying into this thing constantly, right? Well, if you reversed it and the water spraying out, I mean, there's no reason to assume that all. I just feel like that dirt would just go back into the ground. Pretty positive. A lot of it, but a lot of it ends up on top of the lands that didn't get broken up. And that's what ends up ultimately creating your mountains. These mountains are not always what we think they are. We're told that tectonic plates push up against each other, and whenever they push up against each other, it pushes up these mountains get pushed up, because all this is the crust of the earth. That's what they tell you. They have to tell you that in order for you to believe, that you live here. In order for you to believe that this is where you live, and on this thing, they have to tell you that about the lands, about the tectonic plates and all of that. But what ends up truly happening is when you go into YouTube and some of these videos and whatnot. Good evening, Wendy. Good to see you. Say, but you wanted to say hi. Well, hey, I'm glad you came by. Thank you for coming by. It does mean a lot that you came by. It really does. I appreciate you stopping in. And if you can't stay, then you can't stay. But I don't want to hold you either. So I will just continue on what I'm doing here. And anyways, like I was saying, I want you to stay if you want to stay, is all I'm saying. But if you got to go for whatever reason, I understand. It's late. It is 9:30 already. But either way, I'm glad to see you here. What I'm trying to tell you is that, like in some of these videos that we'll go over at some point, you'll see a mountain, but it'll kind of look like this. But it'll be more like that. And they'll tell you that this is created by tectonic plates and whatnot. I understand, John, if you gotta get some sleep. It is pretty late. It's not, but hopefully this won't take forever. So I won't go on for 2 hours, I don't think, this time, but I will probably get an hour out of this. But what they're telling you is that these mountains are created the way that they tell you in school, when in reality, as the fountains were bursting out, some of the dead people that were dying, like the giant people, not the little bitty yous and me's, but the really big fellas. These really big fellas, the ones even bigger than this fella, let's say that we're this little fella way down here. And he didn't even know we're there. We're that big. This little to this guy ends up getting covered with some of this mud and dirt and whatnot, and he becomes a mountain. And that's where the mountains come from that we have all throughout the world. Some of these little chains and stuff are not exactly what we're told they are, is all I'm trying to tell you with that. All right, now I want to show you, there's this video. Let's see if I can pull this up. Oh yeah. All right. You turn him down. What you're looking at right here, what you're seeing in this is the same picture that I just went over with you. All he's doing here in this video is he's taking the moon, transposing it in Photoshop. He's not adding to it. He's not taking away. He's not digitally altering this moon figure. All he's doing is transposing it and adding the color in to the different areas. And then by doing so, he's able to outline the same lands that you and I know about. Now, all right, let's pause that and let's read what he says. He says here, the sun makes a spiral motion. The complex movement consists of two individual movements, a circular motion and a simple harmonic oscillation. The moon makes a spiral motion too, but its center of the motion makes an oscillation too. Every new moon, the center of its motion changes. So we conclude this is an elliptical spiral orbit. All right. So he's basically just kind of showing you how this all works and whatnot. Okay. So, anyways, I'm going to get back out of that. I'm going to pull this picture back up. Now, what this moon is here for, where are we? I want to bring this back into the King James version because I'm just not a fan of that other. So here we learn about the moon and the sun. It's the first time we ever really learn about it. If you were just new to the world, you weren't educated. Let's see. It says, and God said, let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times, days, and years. And let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. This is all done on the fourth day when he created light on the second day, was it? Or was it the first day? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And all this was done in the first day. You had the first day, second day, third day, fourth day. That's 4,000 years of light before the moon and sun were even made. That's important to understand when we go into explaining and learning about what potentially could be outside of our world. In these outer edges or outer areas of our world, or even within it, there is light already. There's light. It may not necessarily be the same light that we are used to or that we see and experience every day today, but there is light, and that light exists within this whole area. All right, let's pull that back up. Inside this big dome here, there's light. But for whatever reason, it gets extra dark inside here. That's why I guess our sun and moon is necessary. And I'm not sure why it's getting extra dark inside this little area right here. But our stars and stuff are up here. They're not in here. We see them from where we're at within our small dome area, because they reflect in through it somehow. That's a science I just haven't mastered yet. It's just, I'm just not there with that yet. But that doesn't mean I don't completely understand it, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, is what I'm saying, is all. Anyhow, The reason why they lie to you about this moon, and they have to lie to you about the earth, another reason, there's multiple reasons. There's so many reasons. Oh, I'm not showing the map. Oh, let me pull this back up. Right. All right. Thank you for that. So what I'm showing here is that the reason they have to lie to you about this moon and this map here is, if I didn't show you that, if you weren't looking at that, then y'all didn't see what I was pointing out. So our dome, our firmament is here. The stars are laid within this firmament right here. However, we live within this dome area, and this dome area is in a quarter of the world. And for whatever reason, the stars refract through that. It's why it looks like we're looking at them through water, because this is kind of like water. It's watery. It's like a water bubble that's over us. They showed it to you on television a while back when that dude took the air balloon up and he burst through water. And he's in water, and then all of a sudden he's out of water again. Well, the reason he's out of water is because our bubble is more like a water bubble. Our dome is a water bubble. It's not physical like the big one. The big one is like a emerald glass. It's a different type of glass ceiling. And then you have, that's why like some of the rockets you see will look like this. Like whenever they hit, they kind of have this weird look to them as they're skirting across this bubble or this dome. The Hennessy commercial, that's right, absolutely. The Hennessy commercial showed you that. But what you don't see is whenever things hit this, because it looks different, they explode. They can't survive the crash whenever they hit the firmament. It's too hard for us to penetrate. We can't get through it. That's why they didn't allow Hillary Clinton to be president at the times, because she claimed that we would break it. We would break through it. And the people that are in charge of this world know that that's impossible. So she became too silly. They had to let her go. Anyways, back to where we're at in the great United States over here. As we move along this map, you can see Russia up here and Australia. So Australia's right over here. You have China right here, and you have Russia right here. Canada, United States, Brazil is South America. You have New Zealand right over in here. This is what you're told is the Pacific Ocean. This little area of water right here, the Pacific Ocean, is, let's pull this back up, is this vast body of water right here. And what they're trying to tell you in mainstream today is that they found a continent right out here somewhere, but it's underwater. Like you can't really see it, you have to have like modern technology with sonar and all this other mess and all this digital artwork in order to see it. You can't really see it, but there is an extra continent out there, and this is what people will say about that. But in reality, that same Pacific Ocean body of water I was just showing you with Google Earth is this area right here in pink. And encircled in here, you see another landmass. They call it Lemuria. This is where that name comes from. If there's people there or not, I don't know. If I were the elite, that would be a place I would want to live, perhaps, separate from all the rest of the world, and none of us even know that it's there. More importantly, this point from here to here is only about 160 something nautical miles, and this is off the coast of China. And if you'll see, like right here, you have Japan. That's Japan right there. from every known body of land that you and I and all of us have ever been taught about, there's only 150, about 160 nautical miles difference. The issue is you're not allowed to go more than 150. You just can't go that far out. But even if you could go that far out, what they're referring to is things like this, or like traveling like this, 150 nautical miles like this. What they're not saying is go straight south and go 150 nautical miles. You could do it right here. You could probably do 400 nautical miles right there. But you and I have been taught about this little area, just about most of this stuff right here. So some of that you could kind of get away with, but they're not going to steer you in the right direction. If you tried to go this way, you will get stopped. You're going to get pulled over, shot down, or sunk, or whatever. However you're traveling, they're going to put an end to it. The guy that originally did it was Augustus Picard. I think broke into the atmos with his slingshot balloon. I don't know what it was called, so slingshot balloon it is. Yeah, I think, I'm going to go with that too. Regardless of what it is, we're calling it a slingshot balloon now. So but you're right. It kind of just slung up into the water and burst through until it came out on the other side. And what they're showing you, like I said, is realistically, they're not showing you the actual firmament. That's why they throws people off. That's why you'll have like dedicated pastors. And there again, I want to make this clear. I don't think all pastors and churches and Christians are bad necessarily, just because they don't know and understand certain things. But just because they don't understand and know certain things don't mean they need to disregard everything either. But regardless of that, they're not all trying to deceive, but what ends up happening is they've read enough to know that the firmament is like glass. Glass and water are not the same. The consistency, everything about it is different to a degree, except for when water is still. But it's not often water is still, unless it's, in a man-made environment necessarily. But regardless, in the natural form, water does have like a motion to it most of the time. And so the point that I'm trying to make is, like, you'll have some of these old pastors that are legitimately still be deceived because they see that Hennessy commercial and they go, nah, that ain't true. There is a firmament up there, but it's not like that necessarily. And so, they'll kind of just disregard even their own perception sometimes, is all I'm trying to say. That they kind of show you a little bit, but don't show you enough of the big picture for you to see that what they're showing you within this area, that bubble that forms over us like this and has its center right up wherever that is. So this bubble that kind of goes over us. The rest of this is not within that bubble. Now, as far as you and I are concerned, anyone watching this video today, no one within the last, just to say 20 years, even knew that these lands were out here. Up until a few years ago, most of y'all didn't even know there was an ice wall around us. Even I didn't know certain things that we're going over today a few years ago. Now I do. Well, so I'm explaining and showing you what I do know. And what I'm showing you here is that it is possible, when you get into the realm of conspiracy theories, to think that there could be people existing out here living their lives just like we're living our lives, totally unaware that we exist, just for the same reasons that we weren't aware that there was even land out there. Now, this land that you see out here, outside of our area, they showed you that in school too. I think you were in 1st or 2nd grade. And the reason I'm saying it like I know you, because every one of us were shown the same thing. This is where people get confused with Pangea. Okay, now I'm going to bring Pangea up. What they'll try to tell you is that all of these land masses, Africa, the United States, and all that, were together at one point, and they probably were. Those, for the sake of this, they probably were. Let me pull Pangea up. Pangea. Let me. Do I not? I didn't pull it up. Pull my history up. I don't know if this is a safe thing to do or not. Let's see. I hate having to refine things. Let me move that out of the way. When you were in school, you were shown and taught the same thing as everyone else. The same thing this thing here is going to tell us when you Google it. Pangea was a supercontinent that existed from about 300 to 200 million years ago. So far back in time, you can't do no reasonable. There's no way to really know that. 200, but regardless, they know. Figured it out already years ago during the late Paleozoic and early Mesozoic eras. The Pangea was formed when the land masses joined with other microcontinents to form Euro-America. It was surrounded by a global ocean called Panthalassa or whatever. Pangea began to break apart around 200 million. It's just telling you all about it, right? Well, here you go. This picture you have seen in school. I don't know if that's going to load a good image of it or not. There you go. There's a better one. I'm going to kind of leave it there. It's hard to, if I move it, it might go away. Let's see what happens if I click on it. I might could make that bigger. Aha. So, well, that's about as big as you're going to get. You have Pangea. And what the only truth to Pangea that I'm willing to consider is that these land masses were in some way together. Maybe not all of them, but some of them were together at some point, and during the little season they became separated. Now these only represent, this whole body of land right here only would represent 1/4 of the earth. This is not the entire earth. But what they'll tell you is that these land masses broke apart, and that's what happened with Pangea. When in reality, what was really happening, let me pull this back up. Come on, Mr. iPad. What was really happening is these land masses might have been separating somehow a little bit, but the real breakup of land happened with the flood when the waters came bursting out. Now, it wasn't just from below. You did also have a lot of water coming in down from above as well. The firmament was broken, and we see that now. But why the stars and everything kind of look like shimmery, like they're in water, is because that's what we're seeing it through, is that is our bubble that's over us. Let's see. Spirit. I've had a super rough day. I just wanted to come show some support and hit the like. Much love, y'all. Much love, Wendy. I hope you have a better day tomorrow if your day was that rough today. I know mine was pretty rough, and I didn't get a whole lot of sleep either, and I'm pretty tired. This reason why I'm not sure if I can make this thing go 2 hours tonight or not, but I'm going to try to get at least the information that I wanted y'all to know out of it in here. So, like I said, or like I was saying, before I go into like I was saying, Miss Wendy, I hope you have a good night, and thank you for coming by. I love you guys, and I love you, so I hope you will watch me later on and correct me when I'm wrong on this thing. Now, I don't want to be sitting here giving the wrong information. So if anyone understands this better than me and can explain it, articulate it better, by all means. But regardless, I'm going to still show what I show, and I hope that eventually others will figure out ways to make this better to understand. But this is the same body of land we just looked at, basically. It's still there. Pangea is still there today. That's the only thing I was trying to really point out with Pangea. Only difference is it's a little bit broken up more now than it probably was before the loosing of Satan, when some of the lands and islands kind of got moved away. And I think that's what separated a lot of that. It wasn't just in our little area. The whole world was affected by this event. Well, another thing that's important to see, and I'm going to show that in a moment, is how these ages and seasons work. This moon is important. And I was just looking at chat. This moon is important not only to show us where we're at, but it's also good to let you know what time it is. It tells you the time. Well, not necessarily the time. You wouldn't measure time off with the moon per se, but what you would measure is a season. And what this moon does, every 28 days, it goes from being full like it is. And what happens is every 28 days, what'll happen on the first day, it'll be full like this. What'll happen is in one day, it'll be like this. The next day, it'll be like this. And then it'll be like this. Then it'll be like this. And then it'll kind of do this thing. And then it'll flip and it'll be this way or something like that. The point is, it goes through 28-day cycles. This moon does this every year. It never changes. It doesn't falter. It does 28-day cycles. The difference between the sun and the moon is one acts like an hour hand and one acts like a minute hand. Okay, so essentially the sun has its rotation, and it does it every quarter. It moves within this circle right here, and what it does as it moves through this circle, what the sun is doing is it doesn't change. The time doesn't really change a whole lot. But the moon kind of goes around a little bit faster. And so it'll pass the sun ever so often. And when that does, it causes like a little eclipse. And that's where the eclipses come from. But what they don't tell you about it is that this thing does 28-day cycles 13 times a year. And it does this every year. And so a lot of people will try to build timelines based off of this lunar calendar. It's essentially the best one to use. It's the most accurate one, but the only issue is it only goes back to the fourth day. It doesn't go back to the third day or the second day or even the first day. What does go back that far, though, is the sky and what was in it. And the stars that are in the firmament above us, all these stars right there, they are within that firmament. They go back a little bit further than the moon and the sun. Well, the thing is, the stars in themselves, they revolve around our firmament, within our firmament, around our world, like this. And what happens is, you'll notice when you look at the night sky, you'll see patterns that you're familiar with. And we call them constellations. These are fixed stars. They don't move. They are stars. That's what they are. However, you'll have one star that'll be right here tonight at a certain time. Well, tomorrow night at that same time, that star will be here perhaps, and then it'll be here, and then it'll be here, and then it'll be here. It'll just move around, and the reason it does that is it's not a star necessarily, more or less. It's a luminary. It moves. It has a pattern. The thing is, its pattern is the same every 28 days, 13 months out of the year. It's the same every time. And what these stars and this moon is there to show you and help you understand not only where you're at and how to navigate and travel, it's going to show you what day, it's going to show you what month, and all of that's important to understand if you're trying to grow anything, especially out in, the real world, unless you're like doing like a little grow farm or something like that. But most people need to know the seasons. You need to know when the freeze is coming. You need to know when it's time to harvest, when it's time to sow and plant and all that. You need to know all that stuff if you're trying to grow crops and whatnot. And so that's what that's why all that was there. Well, the thing is, this circle right here that is within that quarter that I was telling you that we all live in, that circle actually wasn't always right here. I'm going to say, I'm going to go over here. So the video we're going to see is going to go this way. It's that way, or it actually moves this way like that. What I'm about to show you is that this is where we're at, but this is what it was at one point, or maybe it was over here. Who knows exactly? The point is the bubble that's over us was over this way some more. It wasn't quite the center of that bubble that's over us. Wasn't over that. It wasn't there yet. Or either that or it wasn't here. Let me put it that way. Either the bubble didn't exist yet or it was over that way. But regardless, what was happening is celestially, the stars, they do move around and they change positions every 2,167 years. Okay. Well, what reason that's important is because there are some nut jobs that'll try to date our timeline about you and me, human beings, and somehow they'll want to use this as a foundation. It's not what you're supposed to do with it because it's not necessary. But anyways, when you get into timelines and conspiracy theories and, in the rabbit hole, this is one of them that you could fall down into. I'm just trying to tell you, don't fall. Watch where you're walking. So you have 2,167 years in an age. And what was happening after the flood, we went through 2 ages, I believe. So let's just say that the world was like this, and now it's over here. Well, right after the flood, that if that bubble was there, then it was here. It was here in this area, and so this area here is where it would have been right after the flood. Then, of course, they had a lot of chaos, a lot of calamities, just major event after major event within the Bible. And all that happens within the next 2,100 years. And then what ends up happening when we move into this age, let's just say we'll start the timeline over here at the first year of this age, and we'll put the last year of this age over here, 2167. Okay, so now that's our timeline of this bubble. Now, what I'm trying to point out here is that the start of this year one is the same as this year, 1526. 1526, educationally, what we were taught about 1526. 1526 on my timeline that I was, I don't want to do that yet. On my timeline that I was showing you guys the other day, the 1526 is the same year as 5,000. Yeah, 5,000. So you have year one of the celestial age beginning, whichever age we moved into. The year 1526 being taught to us in school, which realistically we know 1526 realistically was the year 1000. Actually, man, I can't write for nothing on this. Essentially, the year 1001, which would have been the next year after the end of the 1,000 years, essentially, when Satan was loosed. This year, when he was loosed, I say 1526, we might be off on that date right there. Let's pray and hope that we are. Because if we are, that puts us at 2026, and that makes me one of those prophetic doomsdayers, and I'm not trying to be one of those guys. What I'm trying to tell you is that all I'm trying to show you is that there's multiple ways to build legitimate and arguable timelines with scripture. And as people read through this book and study it and learn from it, a lot of these scholars will use those different versions of their of that timeline to try to justify some of these events and correlate them with scripture. Well, you can't necessarily do that if you're not doing it accurately. I mean, it's almost impossible. It's why they give us the birth dates and these dates of their deaths and all of that, and these rulership time periods. It's why we're given a timeline for men and women, for humankind. We're given this timeline so that we know how long we're going to be here. The problem is that when Adam left the Garden of Eden, we already went over the fact that he wasn't 1 day old or 1 year old, but when Adam left the Garden of Eden, we'll call that day one, the first day of Adam, or year, the first year of Adam being out of the garden, and from that day until the last day, it's supposed to only be 5,500 years, according to the angel that spoke to Adam when he left the Garden of Eden. The reason that's important only is because if we went off of our timeline, when this season began, that would have been the end of the loosening of Satan. Now, what's important to understand about this circle that I'm drawing right here is that as it moves around the world, the ice wall moves with it. That's where climate change comes from. The thing is, this 2167 year cycle or event doesn't just stop and then move. It's constantly moving. It doesn't stop. It's just that it moves really slow, which is why you'll see on TV and the news, they'll say, certain places are drying up. Oh, certain places are freezing. Oh, certain places are things that are not normal to certain areas, or it's the reverse of what's going on because of the shift of this bubble as it's moving around the world. As that bubble's moving around, then what's happening is you're having climate change all of a sudden, but it's only within these areas that you have climate change realistically. However, all of this would be unaffected out here by this until the bubble gets over in that area. Now, I think this thing does. I've seen 12 and I've seen 24 cycles. And I guess it could be either one, really. It just depends on how you do math. But that's regardless, and beside the point. The other purpose of this deception here is to show you how they're hiding land from you. That's a whole continent out there. They say this is Atlantis out here. That's what he wrote on here anyways. Terra Vista. Terra Vista. Okay. Terra Vista. Terra. The word terra means land. That's all that means. Okay. I'm pointing that out because of these Tartarian map videos that people see and watch and are enthralled by. Trust me, they're good videos to watch, so do watch them. However, when you see the name Tartaria, Jesus didn't name his kingdom Tartaria. The millennial kingdom was not called Tartaria. When you're seeing is Latin, and all this is just saying is land or earth. It's the earth or the land. There's no name necessarily other than they name areas of people in those maps. When you look at that map, it's not the kingdom of Tartaria, but it could be. It could be the kingdom of the earth or the kingdom of the world. That's what that would mean. It's what that translates into. So it's not like they had this place called Tartaria, which is what throws people off of the Christian path with it when they go, say, yeah, well, the Bible don't say nothing about, the Tartars, that's the Tartars, and they're this and they're that and whatnot. The Tartars were just a rugged people, like a dirty people. But regardless, that's not the the topic I wanted to delve into necessarily. But I did want to point out that So I wanted to point out that this whole area of land here, as it moves around, as this circle moves, so does the whole shifting of climate. Now, what's happening with us, what happened when the 1,000 years ended, not only was there earthquakes and all these catastrophic events, you had the shifting of the season, like the finalizing of going from one age to the next age, not season, but one age to the next age. When we moved into this age, I guess you could divide this circle up, or it takes four. It's, you break it up into 4 sections, and then these 4 sections of it moving around creates an entire, that would be like a visual representation of this thing's timeline, this 2100 year period cycle or whatever. And so you have that cycle of 2100 years within that this thing is moving. Also, the beginning of the next 2167 years. Now we're right now currently 500 and so we're actually 499 years into this thing. We're 499 years into, roundabout 499 years. This is where most of these millennial kingdom timeline scholars that's what their timelines are leading them to. We're 499 years into this age. This is just a season or a quarter of this 2167 year cycle. The problem is we only get 500 years, and we're 499 years into it as of 2025. 2026 is the same year as that, basically. That's also the same year as this, with that other timeline, with the timeline that I was showing you guys the other day. Right here. You have the 1,000 years, that 4,000, 5,000, the 5,500. It's only 500 years in that little area right there. The issue is, if this thing keeps moving, there's not going to be much land for us to inhabit anyways. This bubble keeps going. So it makes sense to me when I get to Revelation and read about Daniel and through Isaiah and all these other prophets, and I read Revelation, I get to chapter 20 and it talks 22, and it talks about 21 and 22, where it talks about the world being rolled up and tossed into the lake of fire, and God builds a whole new world for us to inhabit, those who pass through the white throne of judgment and are found righteous in their souls, or pass the judgment test. We get to inhabit the new world. And it doesn't matter to me that it doesn't physically get rolled up, it doesn't get burned up, it doesn't get destroyed, but what it doesn't do is we don't go over here and build houses on all this other land out here. So even if you could escape this bubble and go out here, you have 1 year left if that timeline's right. And for all of this ends anyways. And if you don't have 1 year, you have, I think it was like, we'll just say 140. Let's give you 140 years. Either way, some of us could go over there, but you got to build infrastructure. You need sewer, you need water, you need power, you need fuel source, you need infrastructure. So none of us, even if we had 140 years left, let's just put it that way, until the end of this thing where we meet the end through Gog and Magog, even if it was 140 years from now, none of us living here in the USA, let's see how big that is, in that little bitty circle down here, none of us are going to end up out here living. They're not going to let you go out past this ice wall. You're not going to. No matter if you wanted to, you're just not going to. You're not going to do it. You could have all the money. You're not going to. The governments are not going to let you do it. But regardless, the new world, that's not even new. This is old. This is all old world. This is old world. All this old world. Old world pre-flood, perhaps where they were living before the flood. You see how this bubble just keeps moving around? This is where they would have been living pre-flood, perhaps. What I'm trying to point out with this is when people will say, oh, this is where they live because down here in Florida, you got gopher wood, or in Georgia, gopher wood. And gopher wood is what Noah built the ark out of. The issue is all plant life was destroyed. It was killed as well. Not just men and women were drowned. Animals were killed with water like that. Like all the plants were destroyed, and Noah and his family and kids it was their jobs to go out and replant everything. Well, they used the birds to do most of this, which would have only made sense to do. However, it's not like you wouldn't be able to plant things specifically where you wanted to either. the point that I'm trying to make is that just because they're there, they grow here today, doesn't mean that they didn't grow over here or over here or over here or over here at one point. Where things grow today is not necessarily where they were growing before the flood, unless somehow Noah and his kids were just so happened to be smart enough to somehow figure out a way to make sure every plant was planted back exactly where it was before the flood. There's no reason to assume that everything is exactly where it was. So saying that, oh yeah, that's another reason why we know America is this and that. Well, it could be the so-called promised land as far as you and I are concerned. And as far as the most recent Israelite people were concerned, as an example, it's one rabbit hole or conspiracy theory. So you have, that could be the case. However, if it is the case, say, God's people, chosen land and all, you can't say it is solely because, or for any reason because there's gopher wood there. All I'm pointing out is that you can't tell me why that gopher wood is there or how long it's been there or since when it was there. There was no plant life after the flood. It was like, that movie Eli, desolate, nothing, just like everything is gone, burn up. Well, so that makes sense to me when I think about how this bubble will end up being over there. And if we have to be in it to survive now, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe we can't survive out here without the atmosphere that this bubble creates. What I'm pointing out with that is that this is not enough land, a world for all of us, when this is what we're used to already, is all of this. We're not gonna be, all that's gonna be left is the Americas and this new piece of land over here. If all of this were happening in real time, like where you could actually notice it, what you would have are news reporters going crazy talking about how Africa is flooding, it disappeared and freezing over, when in reality all it is it would just be getting covered in ice for a short while. This ice wall would eventually move just like that. So yeah. So just like that, it moves. It's gone. Yeah, on to the next area. Just nothing in the world stops. Not you, not me, not our breath, not time, not God's word. God's word begins and it just keeps going. It doesn't end. The word of God doesn't end, is all I'm trying to point out with that. So as you can see, there's a lot to this moon that they didn't want you to know. They were hiding all of this information. Let's pull that back up. Because they didn't want you to know about this place right here. This is just pictures of the old world. And I say old world, it's old to you and me. It's not here anymore. Just some old pictures from, I think this is some Melbourne, Australia. This isn't the pictures I wanted you to see, though. All right. It's these old buildings like this. When we get to these old buildings and whatnot, the only importance of these pictures here is to understand this right here. Look at these buildings. I mean, I don't know. It's just really hard to imagine that the mode of transportation here afforded these men the ability to build these giant stone buildings. We don't build anything in stone today, by the way. Everything's built out of bricks and lumber and plaster, stuff like that. Nothing is built out of stone, really. But yet they're saying that these horses and buggies, these little men and these little horses and buggies, built all of this in this entire city. And all I'm pointing out with that is that whenever this age was ending, Pull that. Let me get rid of that. And we were shifting into the new season. Let's see if I can find it. This is what was going on, just to give you a better visual representation. This is just showing you how the seasons change. There's your clock. Let's skip forward. This is 2,100 years from now. That's right. But if we went back in time, say to before the flood, this is where that bubble would have been then. And as we move through time, that bubble, as you can see, it just rotates around the world. Let's go backwards. See that bubble as it moves? It's just going around our world like this. And this is where it's at today. But in the next season, which we won't even be here, by the way, none of us watching this video or have an opportunity to even watch this video is going to be here by the time we get to this point right here with this bubble. Because all of this world is going to be gone. It's going to be done away with. He gets rid of it. Why he gets rid of it, what he does with it, I don't know, other than, I mean, it really don't matter to me, other than it just says it's going to throw it into the lake of fire. So I'm going to assume it's going to be consumed. It's going to be gone. Regardless, we're not going to be out here. We're not going to be building out in this, all this other land out here. Where all the rest of this is, we're not going to be out here. Here's your Pangea, by the way. Here we go. Here it is. This just shows you a more realistic representation. The issue is, I don't know where he gets the information to know about all this out here. Of course, if you've ever seen the Terra Infinita map, it does reference other bubbles and bodies of land out here somewhere. All I'm saying is that, here, let me pull this back up. It's easier to just show it to you. All I'm saying with that is this. Just because the moon itself only reflects this much Earth doesn't mean that the Earth itself isn't way bigger. It could be so big that it's like this, like you zoomed out, and then there's just like these little Earths all over the place, these little worlds all over the place. And all I'm saying is that the moon we see here at night in our world here every night, when we look at that moon, it's only reflecting what the lands that it's over, that it's above, is the best way to describe that, the best way to explain that. And that's all I wanted to point out with that right there. So let's move back over to here. Here we are in Europe. There's your Mediterranean Sea. For those of you that are clever with like Photoshop and stuff like that, you could take a high definition photograph of the moon and create your own moon map, world map out of it. There's all this dude is really showing you with all of this. But what he's done is he's also been able to help you see where all the lands and places that you are taught about in school, where they're really at. And so you're like, north and south is not even necessarily the same. East and west is not necessarily the same. It is kind of, but it's like a mirror, you know. It's not the same. You notice how you notice this river here. He wrote Lungon and Cherry or Chari or whatever. The Nile over there. Reason I'm pointing that out there is that this Nile River these rivers are not the four great rivers that the Hebrew people through the older Bibles talks about. The four great rivers are not the Nile, the Mississippi, and the Amazon. Those are teeny tiny rivers in retrospect to the great big four rivers. Those four rivers simply divided our world into four parts. And so these are just smaller rivers. That's why I'm not sold on Hyperborea, even if there is land there necessarily as that being the Garden of Eden either. Because I don't think any of us would have been able to live within this region pre-flood era. Our bubble wasn't over there yet. Hadn't quite made it to that point. For whatever reason, I believe that because of Jesus here, when the millennial kingdom was going on and they had all these giant structures and buildings and whatnot. Let's see if I can pull that back up over here. Whenever they were building these giant buildings, it was these buildings, these battery sources were also creating like bubbles, but they were like bubbles of energy as well. Not necessarily water, but they were harnessing the energy from the aether, and they would create these bubbles, and everything within that town, within that bubble would be powered, so to speak. But reason I'm pointing this out here and showing you all that is that I have a feeling that these old buildings like this simply made it to where people were unaffected by in the little season, they were unaffected by the shifting of this bubble. I think you could live literally anywhere you wanted, and you have true free reign of the world. Using the technologies they used, it allowed them to be able to manipulate this thing a little bit better, I assume. I'm not exactly sure on that. I have some backing for this thought process, but I haven't completed that, so I don't want to jump too far off into that and lose not only you but myself as well. All right, so there we go. We've seen, as we've seen that, now we've seen what the earth looks like. These are your months. Actually, I think I've already pulled that up. So if you'll notice, this does start with January and ends with December. But you really should ignore that part of this calendar. I don't know who wrote this. I'm just using this as a guide. So I didn't make this, or I didn't have the time to make this. But regardless, our year actually starts in March, on March the 1st. So on March the 1st, right here, this is when the first day of the year is. And if you'll notice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, September, October, 8, 9, Nov, 10, December. So you have December 10, and then 11, and then 12, January, February. Well, there were 28 days in each of these months, and each month had 4 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4. There was no fifth or sixth week. There was just simply 4 weeks, and there were 28 days in each month. This is funny to me because you work 12 months. No, you work 13 months, but get paid for 12. That's if you get paid per month. But most people do get paid by week, so, or per week, or every Friday, like myself, for example. And what I'm pointing out with that is that whether you work 12 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever, as long as you work 52 weeks, you work the full year regardless. And that's what, so you still worked every day and you got paid for every day that you did work. I don't want people to going into their jobs tomorrow or any other time yelling at their boss saying, "Hey, I was watching YouTube and this dude said that you owe me for a whole extra month." You're not owed a whole extra month of pay just because you're kind of technically working 12 months, because you're still technically working 13 months. It's just the extra month that they take from you is broken up into days. So like maybe in January, they'll give you 2 extra days. They'll give you an extra 2 days in March, an extra day or so in April, here and there. So they just give you a few extra days. And then every 4 years, they'll give you 29 days in February, give you a leap year. And what that'll do for you is that now you'll have your modern global calendar. Another deception, another part of the deception that was necessary for you to believe that you live on this. For you to believe this, you had to be taught all the things about this world that we've gone over tonight, and that you were taught about in school, that I was taught about in school, that every person that can read and write and go to school has been taught about. The issue is there is more than just this big body of water right here. It's not that. There is a lot more land to this world. It's endless. It's endless. It just keeps going forever. I mean, I don't know how far it goes outside of the firmament. I don't have any reason to believe that outside the firmament that there's no other land masses. It doesn't make sense for me to even think that there could be no other land masses. I'm pretty sure there are, but regardless if there are or not, you're not going there. You're not going to prove one way or the other. You can't prove to me that there are, and you can't prove to me that they're not there. But all I can tell you is that even if whether they are or not, all I can tell you is that this world we're in we don't live here no more. Within our new bodies, whenever we do pass through the white throne of judgment, we become glorified saints or whatever it is that we become. We don't live here. We live in a totally new world at that point. All right, let's see. Went over that, the calendar. I went over the Pangea. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to show, I just wanted to point this out. This is just a little gimme for the millennial kingdom people. So one issue I have with a lot of the YouTube Bible scholars is when they get into the whole, oh, I've translated, I did all the work, I did all the due diligence. This is language is an old Latin language here. And in order to understand this in English, you have to cipher this through Greek, and then through, I think, into Greek, back into Aramaic, then back into Greek, and then back into English. There's no one doing that. I mean, most of us are not doing that. But all I'm pointing out with that is that people will do that. They will look at this and swear, or they will look you in the face or look on that camera, and they'll tell you that they did all this, they've done all that. But they didn't necessarily. Not all of them is all I'm trying to point out with this here. This is just an old Bible. And as you can see, there aren't any verses, there aren't any chapters there. It's not broken up. This Bible right here, this old Bible, whether you can read it or not, one thing you can see in it and understand from it is that each line moves to the next line. Boom, 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 boom. There's no stop. It's just like a rhythm. So you would read one line, move to the next line. And after you read that line, move to the next line. And you just would keep going through it like that. As you read one thing, you move to the next thing. There is no going backwards until you need to go back and read back through it to understand something that you're stuck at. That's when you go back through it. But it would make more sense to go all the way back through it. I understand it takes time and nobody wants to do that. It's why once you understand what all this says and you can image it in your head, then it makes going back through it a lot quicker and easier. It's not as difficult as you think is all I'm trying to point out with that. It is just that when people do read scripture, they get deterred and get thrown off by how dramatic and how much it is, how much information it is. Now, this isn't exactly the Bible that I had up here last night that I was reading. I was reading a 1775 version Bible, English print Bible, and what I wanted to point out was that in the year when it was showing you 1776, what it was actually showing you was what we see in a lot of these old maps, and according to the Millennial Kingdom, the little seasoned map folks and Bible fellas, which you'll see on a lot of old paintings and maps and even old Bibles, is you'll see words or numbers and dates. Like you'll see the year 1325, and you'll be told that that's 1325, but that number and this number are two different numbers. This is a separation. This is actually, it's actually more like this, because they are going to leave a space for that extra line, that extra number when it does happen. But the point is, it's I. It's not a one. And so a lot of the Millennial Kingdom era stuff, whether it was commissioned by Jesus or not, anything dated during that time, whether you were still a sinner or not a sinner, living or whatever, you're, and it was the year 325 of the millennial reign, your dates would have looked like this: I 325. Not 1 325, but the difference between this and this is 1,000 years. So they kind of add 1,000 years to some things, but then at the same time they'll take away some years. And when they take away these years, they add to, and then they take away. So they'll add to these years to turn a 300 into a 1300, a 400 into a 1400, a 700 into a 1700, and so on. They can add to it, but then when it comes to the real history and the truth about what happened during that 1,000 year period, that's when they're lying to you. That's when they're not telling you the truth, because then they're taking an away. So they it's a give and take is all I'm trying to point out with that. All right, let me pull that back up. Okay. That, I believe, is everything I wanted to go over. Yep. I showed you that. That's Vibes of the Cosmos YouTube channel, by the way, that I was using. For anyone that wants to go and look at those videos for themselves and check them out, and see that on your own time. He doesn't talk. That's why I like these videos. He's not like he's telling you what to think as you're watching it. You just simply get to watch it, and you get to think with your own brain, and your brain will tell you what you're looking at. So just watch his videos and look at these maps of this world, and then it'll help you get a better visual understanding. You're going to need this map once we get to the point in this podcast where we start showing you where people travel within the world that we live in. So what I mean by what I'm referencing with that, I'm going to show you this real quick, is that when we read through scripture and they tell you that these people were here and then they went north and they were here, then they go north and now they're here. Well, on a globe or a flat map, based on whatever the foundation is, all I'm trying to tell you is that just because you start here and they say you ended up here, your actual end point could be over here. It just depends on what they were using for their directions at that time. Anyways, so all I'm trying to point out is that whenever you're trying to locate where people went after the flood, you have to use this map, really, this whole moon map, to really understand that. Because these people were traveling all over the place within this world. I mean, I think actually it was more like this at some point. And so, like, regardless, they were traveling all over. They did not know how to stay home and be still. People just have to be out going around exploring. And I mean, and I guess there's nothing really wrong with that. It's just in scripture, people, when they moved around today, what's happened after the millennial kingdom, after the 1,000 years, after a lot of these biblical events take place, after a lot of these, the flood, let's see, I think that's chapters 5 and 6, right? Wickedness in the world. So yeah, and so after this event, after all these events take place, as they take place throughout time, when it affects us in a way that we don't seem to really realize. I mean, we don't really understand how to put all this together, because what we end up doing is we're chasing these people around this small little quarter of the earth, and we don't realize that they've been all over it. It's only you and me in the last 100 years or so that we haven't traveled outside of this bubble, and that we've been confined to this area that we're in. And so it's all I'm trying to point out with that is that these people during this flood period, during today's period, and not after the flood, but after the little season, after the millennial kingdom ended, when Satan was loosed, these people ended up moving on out into the world and going out and seeing everything. And as they were moving out into this world, what you and I experience is not the same world that everybody within the Bible was experiencing. Your point A to B is not the same as his point A to B. And what's happened is you have a lot of people today that are trying to place themselves within a timeline of the Bible that they don't belong in. You don't belong in certain points of the Bible. You don't belong before the flood. You don't belong anywhere before Jesus' day. You belong after Jesus' day. Look where you live. When are you alive? What year is this to you? When are all the things that you're experiencing happening? Did they happen thousands of years ago, or are they happening right now? Well, when is right now? Well, right now is essentially the end of we are nearing the end of the first quarter of the millennial season. or the 2167 years age or season. And and so, we're living, within that first quarter, within that first 500 years of that time period. Well, that 500-year time period is supposed to end pretty soon. So however that goes, we'll see. I'm hoping. Yeah. No. However that goes, I'm hoping for our sake, your sake, and all of ours included, that we don't have to worry about any of that. Cowgirl. Go, go lay down. Go lay down. No, quit. All right, so she just can't give me 5 more minutes. She's give me 2 minutes. All right, big girl, 2 minutes. Okay, so like I said, like I was saying, I'm trying to close this up. So what I was saying, the whole deception of all of this, the whole ruse with everything is ultimately done so that you don't discover the truth about who you are. And the reason why like I said, all of that was important earlier was just, another one of the important parts of it was to let you see that whenever you're trying to tell who you are as far as a people, it's not really important to try to learn and figure that part out. You don't need to know that. That's why the temple was destroyed. Whether it was destroyed because Jesus just wanted it to be destroyed, or was destroyed because of Nero or whoever, is an irrelevant topic. No one today in the race argument can say respectfully and with truth 100% they know who they come from within that Bible. None of us can say that because none of us really understand what happened in the year 1526. And so as we continue with this podcast, we will uncover that. We will discover what exactly happened at the loosing of Satan, and what led to this whole timeline deception. Look, I hope you guys have enjoyed this presentation. I hope you guys learned something a little bit more about the earth. And if you did, hit that like and subscribe button. Doesn't hurt anything, doesn't cost anything. And I know I sound like one of them YouTubers, but as I learn and grow within this channel, I do understand some things and learn some things, and they're right. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't hurt to hit that like and subscribe button. And unless you just didn't like the content, either way, it's up to you. I do appreciate those that came by. I love everybody within this community, the Little Caesar community. You guys are really amazing and really awesome. I love the way that everybody is able to think with their brains. People aren't just fogged out of their minds, unlike a lot of people within the world around us. And it's so it is a blessing to be able to be a part of this community and experience the wonders and the joys of getting to know and learn and meet other people that have also learned and came to the same theories and ideas and theologies of thought, theories of thought, realms of thought, with on their own. And we've all kind of just studied this stuff and learned it. So I'm not necessarily telling people anything they don't necessarily know already. I'm just trying to explain it and break it down in a way for the ones that don't know and don't understand all this stuff already. And so maybe they can understand it a little bit better from a more simpler, perspective and whatnot. Like I said, as we continue with this series, we will discover and uncover all the hidden truths that have misguided and caused all these misdirections when it comes to understanding the truth of Scripture. You guys are amazing. I love you guys, and I will see you next time.